I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And this week we are going to be taking a deep dive into the Best Supporting Actor category, a category where I am very unsure of the winner. Of the four acting categories, I really don't have a good feel of this category as to who I think will win. But similar to the Best Actor category, I do have a solid sense of who I think will be nominated. Lots of great supporting actor performances this year, like there are in every year pretty much, and got some interesting stats to pull this week and wanted to discuss that a little bit later. But if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is discuss a different Oscar category. Eventually, as we go longer into the Oscar season, we'll talk about the Golden Globes and Critics' Choice and give some of our predictions. But without a doubt, we will be covering and doing a video on every single Oscar category, doing a deep dive, the above the line stuff with the acting, the fun stuff, but then also the real Oscar heads know the real fun stuff is, best editing and international feature. Because when you try to make your predictions, sometimes those help a lot as well. Mondays, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, there's always a new video, but as we get more and more into the season, sometimes we'll do multiple videos a week. You can see that we've been doing this now for over 8 years. This is my 9th season predicting the Oscars. Great results every single year. You can go back and check, me predicting Everything Everywhere All at Once back in October, or Oppenheimer, same sort of thing. This is going to be a very fascinating Oscar race this year, and I'm having a lot of fun so far. So please, if you do have your own predictions, leave them in the comments down below. And if you like the video, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. That's always very helpful as well. But without further ado, let's jump into things. Starting off with my first prediction, which is going to be Guy Pearce for The Brutalist. And like I said at the top of the show, not very confident that Guy Pearce is going to win. And any kind of way I rank this is that I'm very confident that Guy Pearce will get nominated, and he's still an absolute contender for the win. I really think my top 3, maybe 4 contenders in this video have a strong chance to potentially win, just depending on how the race breaks, but Guy Pearce is in the best position. You see, for the Best Supporting Actor category, the types of winners are either the old, established veteran, someone who's been around for many years, who finally gets nominated and then wins, in the case of J.K. Simmons or Sam Rockwell, or even kind of like a Brad Pitt, like these kind of career legacy achievements, great performances in a supporting role. Or it is someone who the Academy has never seen before and are so enamored by him that they eventually give it to him. Think of a Kiwi Kwan, think of a Troy Kotsur, even something like a Daniel Kaluuya, younger actors or just newer actors to the Academy. Those are the kind of 2 types of winners that we see. And I think Guy Pearce falls into the former. He is an actor who's been in multiple Best Picture winners, Hurt Locker, King's Speech, Best Picture type movies. Think of like LA Confidential, almost 25 or 25 plus years ago now at this point. Crazy to think about. And he's someone who, surprisingly, if you look at his IMDb, seems like he is well liked. Despite that, he's never been nominated for an Oscar before. So he's been a leading man. He's done some great, interesting indie movies, Memento, Proposition, but then also the kind of bigger Best Picture type movies. So I think he's well respected within the Academy. He's an actor who's been around for a long time, who's made many great movies. And in this one, The Brutalist, I expect this movie to be very well liked. 10 plus nominations, contending for director and picture. So Guy Pearce has the benefit of being in what I expect to be a very well respected, very well liked movie. And his role in the movie is a kind of classic role that the Academy has also appreciated. Very charismatic, kind of an antagonistic type of a role, but fluctuates between hot and cold. He's very passionate. He's this kind of wide-eyed optimist businessman who at one point loves Laszlo Toth, but then sometimes can be a little bit cold to him. And it's kind of that struggle of the artist and the benefactor, and the hot and the cold. And they discuss in the movie somehow it's kind of like a rich person playing with their toys. They can kind of drop you at any moment, but if they're into you, they really kind of support you and give you the money. And there's that kind of complexity to his character that makes him very fascinating, very charismatic, very kind of entertaining, but with a strong darkness behind it. So without, that doesn't really spoil anything, but Guy Pearce really is a central part of the movie, particularly in the center of the movie, and gives a really great performance and a really juicy type of a character. So a classic kind of a supporting role win or even a nomination in a movie that is very well liked from an actor who's been in multiple Best Picture nominations, who's never been nominated before, but is well respected as an actor with as many great movies over the course of the years. This may be the Guy Pearce celebration tour. We're going to find out sooner rather than later, but I do think he has a very high likelihood of, at the very least, being nominated. Then my second prediction, I'm going to go with Clarence Maclin from Sing Sing. And I've mentioned this on multiple videos now. I am a believer in the movie Sing Sing as even a potential Best Picture winner, but I also understand the variables. This is a movie that could also not even get nominated for Best Picture, not even contend, just because of the way A24 has a unique release strategy with the movie. I'm not exactly sure if they're going to really campaign it hard. I think if they do campaign it hard, it could be a potential Best Picture winner, and Clarence Maclin could pick up the win and could have a similar kind of Coda-esque trajectory. If Guy Pearce is like Sam Rockwell, veteran actor, never been nominated, connected to a well-liked movie, gets the win. If that's Guy Pearce's path, Clarence Maclin's path is more like Troy Kotzer. Coda surges at the late moment, feel good, easy to watch at home, similar with Sing Sing. Intense, emotional, but ultimately feel good soars at the end of the season. Clarence Maclin picks up the momentum as well. Like Troy, new to the Academy, Clarence Maclin brings an incredible amount of authenticity to this performance because he is playing himself. There is a sense of kind of just realism towards that. Now, I'm sure some members of the Academy may be not as impressed because he is playing himself and that he's not, a well-known actor. But the Academy does like to discover new people in many years, just like they felt like they discovered Troy Kotzer for Coda, or Kiwi Kwan, who, was, of course, in Indiana Jones, but hadn't been in movies in a long time, and then, finally kind of came back here with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think they'll feel similarly here with Clarence, because when you watch Sing Sing, of course, Colman Domingo, but Clarence Maclin really is the co-lead, and if the movie works for you and you're emotionally moved by it, he's the guy that kind of jumps out and goes like, wow, who is that guy? And I think the Academy loves who is that guy? I've never seen him before. He's really good. And that kind of a power, that first-time impression for a lot of people is very powerful. And then if he does do the campaigning and you realize that, oh, this is him, he's playing himself and he was in jail and he has this great kind of narrative of being a benefit of the program and now helping people. Now that he's out of jail, he's got this great kind of a campaign story that if he does campaign and spreads that message, I think people will be very moved by his performance, but also by kind of his life and where it ended up. So I think Clarence Maclin, a great performance connected to a movie I do think could potentially even win for Best Picture, but frankly we'll know pretty early on if Sing Sing's a real contender, if it does well at Critics' Choice and Golden Globes. I will say what we've seen so far from the Gotham Awards, Sing Sing did get nominations for Clarence Maclin and Colman Domingo, so we do have at least some critical support as well in the case of the Gotham. So I think it's a good sign, a good early sign that Sing Sing is still a contender, and if Clarence Maclin gets nominated, I think he has a real shot of winning. Then my third pick, I went with Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. This is a movie I haven't seen, unlike the previous two movies. We'll be seeing it very soon. But a Sundance movie, usually one Sundance movie, is an Oscar contender and gets nominated for Best Picture. I think A Real Pain will be that, on the back of a Kieran Culkin nomination, on the back of, let's say, a screenplay award, and then maybe a picture very kind of above the line, kind of a path. And I think some people think he could win, and I think Kieran can definitely win, although I'm betting on The Brutalist or Sing Sing to be more Oscar movies than something like A Real Pain. But based on what the reviews say, he does have another kind of traditional Oscar supporting role type of performance that they like to acknowledge. So he can be very funny and witty and charismatic, but then also has kind of like a deep sadness underneath him. Think of Sterling K. Brown in American Fiction, got a nomination last year off of that back. Think of Sam Rockwell in a way for something like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Sacha Baron Cohen, you could also say something like Trial of the Chicago 7, where they're kind of quick-witted, but then also there's a seriousness and a drama to them as well. So the Academy has supported these types of performances in the past because they can be kind of laughing at you and have the comedy elements, but then also if you sneak up the drama on them as well, that can be a very powerful role too. And if you see it in anything in the marketing, it really is Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. It's not like he is a supporting actor. There isn't really a true lead necessarily to the movie. He's almost more so of a co-lead, which, like we mentioned on last week's episode, it always helps when you're in supporting actor category and people think of your movie. When you think of Green Book, you think of Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen, which helped Mahershala Ali win in the supporting actor category. Even something like last year, The Holdovers. You think of the movie, I think of really Dave Andre Randolph, Paul Giamatti, and Dominic Sessa. It's really the trio, right? But Paul Giamatti is going to have it harder because he's in the lead actor category in terms of winning, but Dave Andre Randolph doesn't have it as hard and is able to get the win actually in supporting actress because she's so important part of the movie, and she's competing against other people like Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer, who isn't in the central part of the movie, so she doesn't have as much screen time, so you don't necessarily think about her. She's not on the poster, blah, 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 blah. It really does help to be on the poster, to be essentially a co-lead of the movie, because if you're in a well-liked movie, like I think A Real Pain will be, potential Best Picture nomination, well, people like your movie, they like you, because they think of you and the movie together. There's kind of a symbiotic relationship there. And I know some people are really bullish on Kieran Culkin just because of his TV connection, and I wanted to discuss this because usually winning Emmys, in the case of Kieran Culkin, like he did with Succession, that doesn't always help you. And for the most part, I think it's a little bit overrated. For some people, they go, oh, he did really well on the TV side, so he's going to win here in the Academy. It doesn't really work like that. I mean, there are no Emmy voters who are also Academy voters. There isn't an overlap there, but it does help you in a couple ways. A, it helps you at being more famous. So you're maybe more well-known as an actor and people are more willing to nominate you and you have more visibility as an actor. That frankly always helps in terms of getting nominated. And then B, what also helps you is you're able to campaign and you know what that is like and you know how to kind of play the room. And Kieran, based on what I saw in the Emmys, his kind of back and forth and press with the Succession cast, he was very good at being kind of charismatic and charming people. So there is a real path for him to win based on his performance, based on how much he is in the movie, at the type of performance that he's given. I'm a little bit concerned that A Real Pain isn't as strong of a contender as a movie like The Brutalist, which will ultimately hurt his chances. But he does know how to win, and on the Emmy side, so while that isn't a guarantee that he's going to win on the Oscar side, it does give him some small benefits, which I do think are still important to mention for the Oscars and for campaigning. He does know how to do that, so I'm a little bit more confident in him definitely getting a nomination, less so maybe in the win. And then my fourth selection, I went with Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. I don't think Gladiator 2 necessarily will be a Best Picture nominee, but they potentially could be. What I do know is that Ridley Scott's movies get seen and get nominated for Oscars. I mean, Napoleon got 3, House of Gucci got 1, All the Money in the World got 1, The Martian got a bunch, so pretty much every movie of his at least gets 1 Oscar nomination. I expect Gladiator to get some of those technical stuff that Napoleon got. Think of visual effects, think of production design, think of sound or score. But I also think Denzel is going to get nominated here. I haven't seen the movie, but based on some of those first reactions, they all kind of talk about how great and Denzel is in this kind of villainous performance in Gladiator 2 here. Let's not forget, Denzel is a very, very well-liked actor. They have given him 2 Oscars, nominated a bunch of times. Almost won a 3rd one for Fences back in 2016. So there's a real shot that maybe Denzel even wins for this role just because he is so well liked. I think of this will be a similar nomination to Angela Bassett in Wakanda Forever, where that was a sequel to a movie that was nominated for Best Picture that only got a couple of technical nominations and then a supporting actor nomination. I think Gladiator 2 will be a similar situation where the first one gets, Best Picture win, but then the second one maybe only gets a couple of technical nominations and then supporting actor. And that's the kind of big standout from another kind of legendary, charismatic actor. In the case of Angela Bassett for Black Panther, but now in the case of Denzel for Gladiator 2. And I think his kind of charismatic, villainous role is still a type of performance that they love in the supporting categories. They like the devious, the the evil. Think of like, a J.K. Simmons in a Whiplash, the antagonist, or even someone like an Allison Janney in I, Tonya. They kind of like that devilish grin kind of a villain within a movie. And the supporting actor category is also a category that, gave the award to someone like a Sam Rockwell in Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, or they got nominated Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. They are pretty okay with giving more over-the-top, bigger performances. They don't need to be these indie, small, reserve type performances. If you get a great performance from a great actor like Denzel, having a good time and hamming it up in a really big villainous role, we know his Ridley Scott's movies get seen, so if it's a well-liked movie and Denzel is the clear standout, we already know Denzel's a well-liked actor, that should be enough to kind of push him over the edge into a nomination, potentially even a win. And then my final slot, I went with Yura Borisov from Anora. This is a prediction that I don't see a lot of people making. I had it on Gold Derby at 100-1 odds, although I did check recently and he has kind of bumped up in a lot of people's estimations. And I think that's just because this fifth slot is very kind of up in the air. You could go with a lot of different people, but as soon as I saw Anora, I thought, wow, Yura has a strong chance of getting nominated. Really why I have him here in this slot is I believe in the power of Anora. I think it is a frontrunner to win Best Picture at this moment, and Best Picture frontrunners usually always overperform in terms of nominations. Power of the Dog, Roma, Everything Everywhere All at Once. When it comes to nominations, they almost always pick up one or two extra that they're quote-unquote not supposed to. And I think Anora will overperform in some nominations. This would definitely, in my mind, be considered an overperformance because he is still an international actor who not a lot of people have seen. He doesn't speak English, so it'll be difficult for him to campaign to a lot of the more American types of voting groups like SAG or even the Golden Globes in a certain respect. So I don't know if he's going to get nominated for SAG or Golden Globes or even Critics' Choice, but he has the strongest likelihood of getting nominated at the Oscars. They've been a little bit more generous at nominating international actors before from movies that are well liked. So I think Yura fits a similar kind of mode here. And frankly, you can pick a lot of the supporting actors in Anora, but the one I went with here for Yura is because he really is a co-lead in many ways in the second half of the movie without spoiling anything. The very end of the movie, he is a central part of that. And I think if the movie Anora works for you, you have to be emotionally connected to the end of the movie, and that has to really hit hard for you. So if you like Anora, you have to really be hit hard by the end of the movie. And who's at the end of the movie that you're really hit hard by in the emotional sense? It's Yura Borisov. So as much as we think maybe of Mark Eidelstein because he's so important to the first half of the movie, I think a lot of people remember the ends of movies more than they remember the beginnings. And Yura is an integral part of that. I'm not saying he's going to get nominated for a bunch of precursors, but with the Oscars, the way Best Picture frontrunners overperform, the way this performance is, if you've seen the movie, he really is integral to the reason why I think people really like the movie. And the final point I wanted to make is I went back over the course of the last 10 years and I counted how many of the nominees in the supporting actor category also had their movie nominated for Best Picture. And there was an average of 3.8 out of the 5 nominees that had the movie also nominated for Best Picture. So I would round that up to 4. So when you're making your own predictions, make sure you include 4 out of your 5 supporting actor. Make sure they come from a Best Picture nominee, or likely Best Picture nominee. Of course, we don't know that just yet. So in my predictions, I've got 4, which is perfect with Yura here. But if I included Jeremy Strong in this category, or I included Adam Pearson in this 5 slot, I'd be less confident in that because going through the years, it's like last year, 5 out of the 5 nominees were from a supporting actor category. Most years, it's 4 out of 5. There's a couple with 3 out of 5. So you really have to be going out on a limb to, let's say, predict Denzel Washington and Adam Pearson in Gladiator 2 and A Different Man, and not have those movies also nominated for Best Picture. This category, historically, 4 out of 5, they like performances that are movies they like that get nominated for Best Picture. So in this final slot, I'd be more okay with someone going for Yura Borisov or Stanley Tucci in Conclave or Edward Norton in A Complete Unknown, more so than I am Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice, or Adam Pearce in A Different Man. And we'll talk about some of those possible contenders now. So jumping into that, let's just go into it. My first possible contender is going to be Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. Similar reasons as to why I left Sebastian Stan out of my 5 for Best Actor. I'm not sure how people will react to this movie after the results of the election are clear. I think this is one of the best performances of the year. I think he's essentially a co-lead, but the Oscars don't always work like that. I don't know if enough people will see this movie because of its content. It's also not being distributed by a major distributor, so that will not help its chances in terms of getting on the Academy portal or being in a prime position there, or just having it well seen. Now, Jeremy Strong is a well-liked actor. He has campaigned before in the Succession sense, connection there with Kieran Culkin. He's also someone who's wanted to play Roy Cohn for a long time, so he may do a lot of personal campaigning because this role is personal to him. But at the end of the day, I think it's just too small of a movie with too divisive of a subject matter. And then my other possible contender, I had Stanley Tucci for Conclave. This would maybe be more truthfully my kind of number 5 slot if I were to replace Yura Borisov. That being said, I think Stanley Tucci, who is a well-liked actor, isn't as well-liked as people necessarily think. He only has 1 nomination. He didn't get in for Spotlight. He didn't get in for Supernova, which was a real Oscar contender earlier on in the season, back in 2020. So he has disappointed us in recent years in terms of getting a nomination. I'm also concerned that if you've seen Conclave, he doesn't have a huge scene, like a big emotional scene that will make you automatically think of him. And then, kind of like the movie Conclave, there are so many great male supporting actors in this performance. I think the support will be divided, kind of like in the movie Conclave. I think some people will really respond to Carlos Diaz and want to nominate him, or Sergio Castellino, or even someone like a John Lithgow. Like, who do you pick of the amazing, many great supporting actor performances in this movie? Maybe Stanley Tucci, just because he's the most well-known along with John Lithgow, and maybe has the most to do of the American actors that are well-known. Hard to say. It really is, I think, kind of the support will be divided. But Tucci still is in a Best Picture nominee, has a past nomination. I expect Conclave to be well-liked. There is a couple scenes that are still, notable of how his character kind of evolves more behind the scenes versus what he's saying, without spoiling anything. That does bring an interesting little flavor to the movie. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below on my predictions, as well as your own predictions, what you have. That's the reason why we make these videos, so please don't hesitate. Feel free to give a comment down below. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss next week's video, where we're going to be discussing the Best Director category. Should be a lot of fun. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.